over our garden wall. I hear the sirens call. You can have what you want. Yeah, you can have it all over our garden wall.
Hello there and welcome to Live Music and Me, a series of music podcasts where we get some of our friends to come on and talk about their gig memories. On today's podcast, our guest was the writer and musician Ian Rankin, and we couldn't have been happier to get Ian on. He loves his music, and we thought he'd have a whole bunch of stories and gigs to talk about that would give us enjoyment, and he did. So I don't want to give it away because obviously that's half the fun of watching. But his stories do include his girlfriend, now wife, at the time falling asleep at a Simple Minds gig on one of the first dates. And there's lots more like that still to come out. So we loved having Ian, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it when you get a chance to watch the full episode. All the best now. Stay safe. Ian, good afternoon. How are we?
I'm good. The sun is shining for a change.
Yeah, it's actually shining here too, which is very unusual if you know Greenock at all. Yeah, it's a pretty wet place, but it's been lovely the last couple of days, which is magic. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate this. And we're hoping you're ready to have a go at live music in me.
Go on.
Go on then, let's start it. So let's take you back a bit and tell us about the first gig that you went to.
First gig I went to was supposed to be Argent in Leith Theatre,
Right?
but we were a wee bit scared to go to Leith. I grew up in Fife, mining towns in Fife.
Yeah.
So getting across to Edinburgh for a gig was always a bit of a chore. You had to get a train, you had to then get the last train home, otherwise you were sleeping in Princess Street Gardens. And Leith Theatre we thought was just too out of the way, so instead my mate got us tickets for a band called Barclay James Harvest
Oh yeah, yeah,
at the Usher Hall. And I had never heard of them. Well, I'd heard of them, but I'd never heard them.
yeah.
And this continued to be the case. I've never owned one of their albums, but they were the first band I ever saw in concert. So I bought the programme, I bought the poster, I bought the badge.
So Usher Hall was deemed to be a lot safer than heading down to Leith. Is that the?
I think it was the fact that we had no idea. I mean, from Waverley Station, you can get to the Usher Hall quite easily, right? But going down to Leith, going down to the bottom of Leith, walking that, and we're going, how do we get there? This is way pre-internet, you know. I mean, we didn't
Yeah.
even have an A to Z. We had nothing. How do you get there? Will it be rough when we get there? All of that. So
What kind of year would this be, roughly?
this was 1975, I think.
75. Well, mid 70s. Man, Leith was proper Leith then, right?
Yeah, it was proper rough.
Yeah. And how was the gig?
It was loud and it was colourful. And they played Mockingbird, which is their one fairly, semi-famous song. They played that
Yeah.
as an encore, I think. I mean, I didn't know any of this stuff. It was the heady days of prog,
Yeah.
and they were just at the fag end of prog, really.
Yeah.
So, twin neck guitars and mellotrons. But it was fine. It was a spectacle.
Yeah, I bet it was. Yeah. But a
I
bit
think the
of that.
second band I saw in the Usher Hall was the sensational Alex Harvey Band, which was a
Ah,
very different experience.
I'm sure we'll talk about them as well. Yeah, and lots of dry ice and stuff, I guess, was there? Yeah,
All of that, lasers, dry ice. I mean, yeah,
absolutely.
almost certainly all of that.
When I
I mean,
did,
in those days, what we sometimes did was from Beath High School in Cowdenbeath, somebody would organise a bus, and a busload of us would go across to Edinburgh, and that made it a lot easier. Um, and there was one time half the bus were going to see Rory Gallagher
hmm
at the Usher Hall, so they were all wearing cheesecloth shirts. And then half the bus was going to see post Peter Gabriel Genesis doing Wind and Wuthering at the Odeon.
right.
And unfortunately for me, in retrospect, I was in the Genesis half of the coach. So I missed out on seeing Rory Gallagher.
But did you have a cheesecloth shirt that you could have wore?
Oh, at the time I would have had one, certainly.
Yeah,
I mean, who didn't?
indeed. An addendum to your Finding Leith thing, my first gig was at the Glasgow Apollo, and when we got up to the central station, we had no idea where the Apollo was. And we had to ask someone, do you know where the bell towers just come down now? Just at that
Yeah,
corner. We, we,
yeah.
we asked someone for directions. And this wee old woman said, she gave us directions. And she then said to us, are you tutors? And we said, yeah, like, I had no idea what it was, right? Of course, every day I go now, because I've been in Glasgow a million times since, and it always reminds me of that. You know, you
Yeah,
can see it literally from the bottom of the street. You
yeah,
know, so
yeah, yeah. One of the
anyway,
most famous music venues in the world.
absolutely okay. I like that. Bachelor James Harvest. I don't think we've had them before. Well done.
Probably not. Who's going to
Ma-
own up to that?
Maybe never again. Right. Okay then. What's forward? What about the last gig that you went to?
Last gig I went to was Andrew Wozelick
Okay.
and Catherine Joseph. She was supporting at the Pleasance Theatre in Edinburgh. He's got a new album out, and she guests on one of the tracks.
Yeah.
Terrific album. He's a great musician. I love him to bits. And that was very enjoyable. It was a sit-down gig. Everybody was very respectfully quiet. There was no wandering out, getting pints and coming back with your pints and all the rest of it. So it was like an ideal gig for me, an all-seated gig. At
Yeah.
my age, that's beautiful.
And I take it good. Where was it? In the Pleasance? Did you say?
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
Pleasance Theatre.
Good sound.
And I think it was pretty much sold out.
Yeah.
I had
Good.
a quick word with them afterwards, both of them afterwards, because they were selling their merch,
Yeah.
as bands and artists must do these days.
Yeah.
So I had a quick word with both of them afterwards, and they seemed to be really enjoying the tour.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, I know it's hard for musicians out there. In fact, it's so hard for musicians out there that I ended up buying his album twice because it turned out I'd ordered it, I think, from Monorail, and I forgot I'd ordered it, so I bought it again, and then, sure enough, there comes a big cardboard box comes through the post, and yet another copy of Andrew Wozelick.
What you do with your spare?
When I have a vinyl listening night, I'll offer it to my mates. I've got a
Right.
few doublers here or
Yeah.
there, and I do pick up doublers from time to time.
Yeah. Me
And so
too.
I'll offer it to my two best pals in the world who both like hi-fi and listen to records.
Okay. Perfect. And that's some support, isn't it, Catherine Joseph?
Oh, I mean, she is mesmerising. I've seen
Hmm.
her a few times, and that way she sits with the piano sideways on,
Yeah.
and she just stares. She turns her head to stare at the audience. Kind of witchy. She's got that kind of witchy thing going on. She can
Hmm.
imagine she's putting you under a spell.
Hmm.
And these extraordinary kind of eerie, erotic songs that she writes, songs of kind of love and loss and hunger. I think she's just superb. And then she came back on, of course, to guest on the track from the Andrew Wozelick album that she
Yeah.
sings on. Just superb. What a great night out.
Good. Sounds cracker, mate. Magic. Okay. What about first gig you went to with a partner? You know, like a gig date.
Yeah, I'll never forget this one.
Okay.
Partner became my wife when not long after we started dating. Me and my girlfriend, as she was at the time, Miranda. She worked in a bookshop in Edinburgh. I took her to see Simple Minds at the Odeon.
Right.
Now, this would have been about the time of I Travel. It was like maybe third or fourth album time.
Yep.
They were in their pomp, but they weren't quite filling stadiums yet.
Hmm.
And she fell asleep. She did a hard day in the bookshop, and everybody was on their feet. I mean, everybody was on their feet for the whole gig. And I
Yeah.
turned around and looked, and there was Miranda sitting down, head slumped, snoring away.
Brilliant.
No.
And did
I
you
think
let
Jim
did,
Kerr he was having a kind of tough, I don't know if he was having a tough time or just a weird night. He kept going off to the back of the stage, the side of the stage, crouching down, head in hands. Somebody would talk to him, he would sort of get up, he'd come back on again. I don't exactly know what was going on. I mean, it was a decent gig, but I wouldn't say it was a classic gig.
yeah. And that would be what, early 80s or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you waken her up?
I don't think I had the heart to waken her up. She did a hard day. Let her sleep.
At the end, shoot, you must have woke her up to go
Oh,
home.
aye, at the end. Go and get a
They're
kebab.
still there. No.
Let's go and get a kebab.
I like that. I mean, that's probably why they weren't selling out stadiums if people could fall asleep on the gig, you
How
know.
you could fall asleep? It was a loud gig. How you can fall asleep during Simple Minds? I mean, Lord only knows. But some people can fall asleep through anything.
Very true.
Give me a really comfy chair in a cinema, and I'll fall asleep during a battle scene. So it's not just her.
We were in Boston back in the last year and we went to see that one battle after another. You know, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
won the Oscars. And we had a wee doze on like a Wednesday
It's quite
afternoon
a
or
long
something.
film. You're not missing much if you have a wee nap in the middle of that.
No, it was fine. We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Got the balance right. Okay, I love that. Fantastic. Okay, what about a bucket gig in the past that you wish you'd been able to get to?
There's a load of those. I mean, when I was at high school, the night before my English hire, Frank Zappa was playing in Glasgow, I think at the Apollo, and I got a chance to go. And I said, I better know because I've got this cram for my English hire, and I was a huge Zappa fan.
Yep.
back in my teenage years. So that was my one and only chance to see him, and I blew it. Um, Stones played at the Playhouse again when I was an undergraduate, so early 80s, and I could have mooched a ticket if I tried hard enough, but I didn't. I did see them later on a couple of times, but that
And
would have been a good one, I
they're
think.
still pretty cool early 80s. That's like start
Yeah,
the
they were,
uptime
they
and
were,
stuff, right?
and I
Yeah.
mean the Playhouse. I mean, I've seen Tom Waits twice at the Playhouse. It's a fantastic venue when you get the
Yeah.
right act in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the one that really does rankle. A mate of mine came to my door one night when I was a student. He said, "I'm going to see the Buzzcocks at the Odeon. You want to come along?" I went, "Ah, no, I'm writing an essay." He went, "Well, there's this band supporting them called Joy Division. You should come. They're pretty
Oh,
good." I went, "I've never heard of them, pal." And I'm not a big Buzzcocks fan anyway. So off he
yeah.
went. And a day later, he was raving about Joy Division. And so I went and bought the first album. And I thought, bloody hell, these guys are amazing. And they were coming to Edinburgh to headline a show in a club. Um, £1.50 a ticket. So I went and got a ticket, make sure I could go to that. And then they cancelled because Ian Curtis wasn't well.
Right.
And they never did. They never did come back to Edinburgh. So rather than go to the venue and get my £1.50 back, I kept the ticket.
Of course. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
then got late. I mean, just a few years ago, I managed to get Peter Hook to sign it,
Oh, magic.
apologising. He said, "Sorry, we missed you in Edinburgh, Peter Hook." But yeah, I would
Oh,
have
that's
loved to have been.
lovely.
I would have loved to have seen them at a gig that
Yeah.
never happened.
Yeah. I never saw them. Yeah. I mean, they've become one of those iconic bands,
Yeah,
haven't they? Two albums
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I mean, I did see New Order very
yeah.
shortly after they started out. They played Clouds or somewhere in Edinburgh,
Yeah.
one of the kind of clubs, nightclubs, and they were okay, but they were a wee
Yeah.
bit shaky. They were still finding their feet without their singer, and they were introducing keyboards and stuff. And so, of course, the tech back in those days wasn't always. Sometimes it went wrong, you
Hmm.
know. Those early synthesizers had a thing about breaking down halfway through a set.
Yeah.
But a thing I remember about that is that between the support, who would the support act have been? Somebody like Joseph Kay or Boots for Dancing, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But between the support and New Order, my mate nudged me and I turned around and playing Galaxian. There was a Galaxian machine somewhere off to one side of the venue. Was Peter Hook,
Ah, right. Okay.
and at a
Yeah.
respectful distance was all these people just staring at him
Yeah.
because he'd come out just for a game of Galaxian before he went on stage to play bass.
These things just don't happen anymore, do they?
I don't think so.
Don't I?
I
I've
doubt it.
never seen that. Ah, okay, magic. And does that count as one of the questions as a gig that you had a ticket to, but you never got to?
Yeah, I guess that's that, isn't it?
Is that one?
I get that's that. That's that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many gigs that I wish I'd gone to and didn't, and then uh, the band somebody dies, and so the band aren't going to play again, and you've missed that chance or chances to meet musicians that I've had, and I've gone, oh no, I'm a bit shy. I'm not going to try and meet that musician. Then they're no longer with us, and you think, oh, I wish I'd held my nerve.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, particularly when you're younger, it was such a big thing to go and see your heroes, right?
Oh, it's a huge thing. I
Yeah,
mean, my mate Colin Baxter, he was brilliant at gigs. He'd always managed to get backstage after.
right.
He would fight bouncers and he'd smash doors open and he'd get backstage to meet Rick Wakeman or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'd all be waiting for him outside and he'd come out with a pen that Rick Wakeman had held. And you go, wow, wow, the Holy Grail.
I get thrown out of a Yes concert at Glasgow Apollo. I did.
For fighting?
No, actually, I never got in.
Ah,
I never got in, if that makes sense. There was a bit of a fracas at the door as we were
ah,
waiting to go in, and I get involved in it, and they rejected us, and they wrote in the back of the ticket, refused
oi, oi,
entry
oi.
or something. But when the doors opened, we kind of did a rush and got in. So don't
Wow.
get a lot of aggro at a Yes gig, I don't think.
I wouldn't have thought you get a lot of patchouli oil, but not so much aggro.
That's very true. I'm not sure why I was there, to be honest. That was my mate's band. All right, what else we got? What about a gig that most surprised you, good or bad?
Um, I went to see Sigur Rós a few years ago. I
Hmm.
mean, not a huge fan of Sigur Rós. Not that I'm not a huge fan. I'd not listened to much of their stuff, but they came to the Edinburgh Festival, and I think my wife had got us tickets for me and her and our son. And they were just joyous. They were superb. I know they're coming back very soon
Right?
with an orchestra to play Edinburgh at the end of August. Uh, but they were surprised. Bands that you go, I don't know who this is. A lot of support acts were like that. Psychedelic Furs supported Iggy Pop. Again, I think at the Odeon in Edinburgh, and I really didn't know the Psychedelic Furs, but they were so good that I went out next day and bought the LP. You know,
Yeah,
it was that's the kind of gig that you like when you see a band and you go, all right, okay, I'm now a firm fan of yours.
yeah.
Um,
And it'd be interesting. I've never seen Sigur Rós, so the one of these bands that you wouldn't be too sure that that kind of live experience would transfer from record.
yeah, no, I think they put on a proper performance. I mean, the time I saw them, they had all these kind of very slender white lights that were coming down from the ceiling, and they were sort of playing in amongst them. And the drummer was off in the middle and up, he was higher up than the rest of the band, and it was great. It was great. Yeah, and I went to Glasgow to see the Liminianas. I mean, I'm a big
Yep,
fan of the Liminianas. But on record, they do this kind of 2 3 minute kind of garage pop type songs
yep,
done in French. But in Glasgow, they really stretched things out. They were doing like 10-minute extended jams, 15-minute extended jams, and I thought, oh, okay, this I wasn't expecting this,
yep,
but it's really great. One time I went to see James Yorkston in Aberfeldy, and he brought on some Indian musician, and the two of them just jammed,
yep,
mostly doing Indian stuff.
yep.
I thought, well, James, you're a fife folkie. What are you doing? But it was great. It was absolutely mesmerising.
And do
So
you like
yeah.
that then in general? Do you like that when the live experience is significantly different from the kind of recorded?
You know what? I mean, for some gigs, you want it to be exactly as you remember it. So, for example, when I went to see Friends Again recently in Glasgow, the
Yeah,
support act was Lloyd Cole, and it
yeah,
was just him and an electric guitar. And he said, I'm just going to play songs that were written in Glasgow. And you basically got the first two albums,
you
note for
did.
note.
Yep.
And I mean, come on. I'd forgotten how that I knew every lyric. Every lyric to every Lloyd Cole and the Commotion song was still stuck in my head somewhere.
Yeah,
And that was just absolutely superb. That was exactly what I wanted
yeah. That was very special.
from him on that night.
Yeah, it was. It's very special. All right. What about a gig that you travelled the furthest to get to?
I've been thinking about this because I've not travelled ridiculous distances to go to gigs. I mean, I went to London. Would it have been the year before last or last year? Year before last, to see The Cure
Uh-huh.
perform their new
Okay.
album in full
Yeah,
at the Troxy in East London, which is a small venue for them. I mean, I got on the guest list somehow, and I thought, right, I'm going to go. So I booked my train, I booked a hotel, and all the rest of it. And that was a big thing for me because they were phenomenal.
yeah, I
They
can
were
imagine.
absolutely phenomenal. Um,
And in such a
and
small venue
Mogwai were
as
next to
well.
me. Mogwai were sitting next to me, so I was kind of
Okay.
chatting away to Stuart and that during the gig, and Boy George was along at the far end, and there was Tim from the Charlatans, so I know he was sitting behind me. It was great. It was just a joyous gig.
Yeah.
But I did years ago. My son got into blues music, and I've got a mate who lives in Ottawa, and he said, "Oh, we've got this amazing blues festival in Ottawa. You should come, bring him to Ottawa." So the pair of us flew to Canada for this 3 day blues and rock festival, which is possibly the only rock festival I've ever been to. And
Okay.
it was mostly people of a certain age who all took deck chairs with them because they couldn't stand up for 10 hours. And Roseanne Cash was playing, and I'm going to forget who was all playing. Santana, Stevie Winwood, a lot of kind of blues guys,
Yeah.
young and old. Um,
Pretty good
and
lineup.
with it, yeah, well, it was a really good lineup. I
Yeah.
mean, and some of the weird bands we went to, whose names are now going to escape me. I mean, Derek Trucks, what to say, Derek Trucks and Trucks Tedeschi, his
No,
partner's Tedeschi.
not
Anyway,
that one.
and they were just great. He's an phenomenal guitarist, kind of rootsy guitarist.
Yeah.
But some of these, I went, I don't know who these people are, but let's go and see them. And they all turned out to be absolutely brilliant, and we had a great time. But it was a long way to go for a gig.
And did you go to Ottawa just for the festival? Was that
Yep,
the? Yeah. Wow.
yep.
That's fair effort. I mean, that's what.
So
That
I
must
know
be a few
I
thousand
booked us a
miles.
hotel near the festival site,
Yeah.
and we went there and we were there for about what 3 4 days, and then we flew home.
Yeah. That's cracking. Yeah. That's quite far.
We almost didn't get into the pan. I don't know if they thought I was smuggling my son in or something. He'd be about 13, 14.
Yeah.
And at immigration, they were saying, "So, what's the purpose of your visit?" And I went, "Well, I'm going to a festival." Well, who's playing at the festival? And I reeled off some names to them. Where are your tickets? Oh, my mate's got them. Where's your mate? Well, he's waiting for us in the terminal somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, and then so they called him, and he had to go and say, "Yeah, they're friends of mine. They're going to this festival." It was the hardest I've ever worked to get into a country.
Well, at least it was worth it.
It was worth it.
Yeah. And just doubling
Another thing
back.
was when you went to get a beer from one of the concessions, they would only sell you two beers because they didn't want you getting jakey.
Yeah,
Well, there was four of us, right?
yeah.
So I'd have to go up twice to get the beer. You queue and get two beers, and then go back to the end of the queue and queue again for two more beers. It was nuts.
I went to a basketball gig in Boston last October. I mentioned I was there, and I couldn't get a beer because I had no ID.
And you do look young.
Well,
You
but
do look young,
goodness me, my
yeah.
wife really enjoyed that one. Just doubling back on, you just mentioned Mogwai there.
Yeah.
Did you know, was there not an in joke in one of your Rebus books or
Yeah.
adaptations about Mogwai? Is that right?
Yeah,
About
yeah. It was. I
Siobhan?
mean, it was back in the days when they didn't have any vocals on their albums, really.
Yeah,
And there's a Siobhan Clarke, who's Rebus's younger
yeah.
assistant or kind of cop, has loaned him her Mogwai album, and she said, "Have you listened to that Mogwai album yet?" And he goes, "Yeah, good lyrics." So, I mean, basically saying that he's not listened to it. He's kind of telling the reader he's not listened to it. And I just loved that wee joke.
Oh, it's cracking. Yeah, really good. Would that be the best music festival? You say you've not been to many. Would that be the best one you've been at
Well,
then?
I mean, I did. I once. I mean, you're bringing back memories now because I did. That time I saw James Yorkston in Aberfeldy. It was a wee festival in Aberfeldy that was put on by the local distillery, and it was like they did it 2 or 3 years running. It was just over the course of a weekend, um, and that was all. That was always really good fun. You get some like KT Tunstall or somebody turning
Mm,
up to headline. Star Wheel Press with the local band
hmm.
because their singer-songwriter lives and works in Aberfeldy, so they would always play. In fact, I'm going to see another question you've got is what's your next gig? I think. Well, the next gig I've got, I think, is Star Wheel Press in Edinburgh
Okay.
in next week. I think next week.
Yep. Perfect. And you'll have been to Celtic Connection stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I've been to
Yeah.
Celtic Connections. I mean, the odd gig here and there,
Right. You've
and
not
I,
done
I
like the
performed.
ensemble nights that they do,
No,
for
I
that.
mean, no, I mean, I'm trying to think now. I went to see, it was called something like, what was it called? There was some famous old folk album and they recreated it, and I went to that, but I don't remember too much about it. No,
Yeah.
but I did appear a couple of times. I appeared on stage with Jackie Leavin. The pair of us did a thing called Jackie Leavin Said, and that was
Yeah.
at the Celtic Connections
I've heard that.
in the Glasgow concert hall, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they were meant to tape it, meant to record it, to put an album out, but the recording didn't work. So I remember at the end of the gig, this guy with his laptop came out and said, "Look, can you and Jackie just go back on stage and do it again to an empty room?" And we went, "No." Uh, so then they managed to get us a gig at the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh, and we recorded that one. And
Yeah.
then, so we did manage to put the album out.
Yeah.
But then after he died, we did a night to Jackie Leavin again at the Celtic Connections a few years ago, and got some people who'd played with him and were fans of his to come along and do stuff. And that was I mean very moving, obviously
Yeah, of course.
because he was taken far too soon.
Yeah.
But it was a really nice way of memorialising him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
And
know they did something similar, although he's still with us, God bless him. Dick Gaughan. There was a Dick Gaughan one this year that I wish I'd managed to get to, but I was elsewhere.
I was at it wasn't a Dick Gaughan night, but they did a Celtic Connections, what was it, 100 years of John McClane, I think it was. And a whole bunch of guys there. Billy Bragg was there. I'm a big Billy
Yeah.
Bragg fan, and Dick Gaughan come on at the end, and it was actually very moving because Bragg actually went off stage and sort of brought him on,
All right.
literally brought him on, kind
Yeah,
of
because
helped
I
him
mean
on.
he's a bit frail. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it was that whole kind of ensemble. The guys you're
Yeah.
watching were fantastic. So
Yeah, I got my they crowdfunded a Dick Gaughan box set, so that arrived a few weeks ago
that's right. Yeah.
at Rankin Towers.
Have you hidden that one?
No, well, I
No.
mean, I've listened to it's all on CD. I've listened to a few of them. I think it's about 10 or 11 CDs. Is it? It's quite a lot.
Yeah.
I've listened to a few of them. The live at the BBC one is especially good. And there's a live in Belfast
Yeah.
one which is also very good.
Okay. Like that. You mentioned, I think it was a psychedelic first. You mentioned earlier, seen them. What about best support act that you've ever seen?
Well, I mean, there was a time when if a new wave band came through Edinburgh, the support act was always either the Scars or Joseph Kay.
Right.
And they were terrific. I mean, both of them were absolutely superb.
Yeah, they were.
Um, so those were really good support acts. Let me think. I went to see Gong in their later years when they were kind of shuffling around. There was only two of them left, and they were shuffling around in baffies basically on stage. But Steve Hillage was playing with them, and he
Right.
was the support act. So the
Ah,
Steve
right.
Hillage band was the support act, and then he came back on and did the Gong set, and he was brilliant.
Yeah.
He was absolutely superb.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I do like a good. I always get there in time for the support act. I always, and I mean,
Yeah,
like the Friends Again gig. I mean, I think it was kept kind of under wraps that it was
it
going to
was.
be Lloyd Cole.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of us knew it was going to be Lloyd Cole, but I mean, a lot of folk in the audience didn't, and it was just fantastic when he came on stage on his birthday
yeah.
and said, "I'm only going to play Glasgow songs for you tonight."
And it was very busy, to be fair, when he came
Yeah.
on. So you're right, the word had got out. When I was younger, to be honest, I probably missed quite a lot of support bands. In the
People
pub
do. I
and
don't get
yeah.
it. I mean, you've paid for a ticket. Why
Mm.
wouldn't you go along? But a lot of people just come in for the main act. Yeah.
Not now. I get to as many as I can because you're
Yeah.
right, and also some of these bands become really famous, don't they? So
Yeah.
you're seeing them on the sort of step up, and that's
Yeah.
kind of quite important. I thought you might have went for best picture there. You guys supported a few,
Oh, we
didn't you?
did, yeah, we did support. We
Yeah,
supported Fat Cops in
yeah.
Glasgow, and we
Hipsway,
supported. Who else did we support?
Hipsway.
Hipsway. We supported
Yeah.
Hipsway at St Luke's.
That must
Christmas
have been good.
gigs.
Must have
Christmas
been good
gigs.
fun, was it?
It was good fun. I mean,
Yeah,
because it was Christmas and because it was a Glasgow audience, they gave us quite a lot of leeway. We supported Hipsway a few weeks before in Edinburgh,
yeah.
and we'd been absolutely atrocious, and we knew it. And so we went back into the practice room and we practiced hard. And by the time we got to Glasgow, we were in much better shape.
Right. Okay.
For men of a certain age who are doing this for fun, not
Yeah.
profit.
Yeah.
But that was the last gig we played because then COVID came along
That's right.
a few
Lockdown.
months
Yeah.
later. And our bass player had moved to London, and Bobby Bluebell who was our rhythm guitarist, was involved in other projects, and it just got hard for us to get together and do anything. But I saw Bobby again at the Friends Again gig, and he said, "Look, we need to get back in the studio because we've got about 5 or 6 great songs that we've not
Okay.
got down on tape yet, and we need to get them on tape." I said, "Well, good luck with that, Bobby."
But you're a yes, right? If we can make that happen, you'll do that, won't
Yeah.
you? I said,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with sort of, I mean, yeah, with provisions because I mean, I am at least the third best singer in that band. I mean, both my singers doing the rhythm singing, Bobby and our bassist are both much better singers than me.
yeah,
I mean, I think I'm a half decent front man, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you put me in front of an audience, I can sort of kind of control the situation. But put me in
In
the
a
studio
in a
and ask
kind
me
of
to
post
sing.
punk kind of way, that kind of
Yeah,
attitude,
exactly,
and yeah, yeah,
exactly. I
yeah.
just did a thing for an electronic musician, and I can't say too much about it because I think it's under wraps. But he asked me to do some lyrics, and then he said, "Oh, can you recite the lyrics?" And I thought, yeah, I can do that. You're not asking me to sing, you're asking me to recite. I can recite lyrics.
Yeah.
So on his next album, there'll be a track with me doing the vocals.
But you're not going down the sort of Mike Skinner route, are you? Are you get into that?
No,
Social commentary stuff? No,
I don't think so.
no.
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
I'm just giving a kind of mood or an atmosphere. All this guy's electronica stuff is usually instrumental,
Yeah.
and he sent me the track and he said, "What does it conjure up?" And I said, "Well, it conjures up a nighttime drive and you're being chased and something, and you've got to get away." And so then I wrote some lyrics or some words to go with that. I did it once before for the Charlatans. They asked me, Tim from the Charlatans said he had 2 tracks in this album, different days. He said, "Can you think of something that can link these 2 tracks, a wee bit of narrative?" So I looked at the lyrics of the 2 songs and I came up with this wee sort of like a chunk of a story, a wee chunk of story. And he went, "Great, can you read it out?" And then he said, "I'm going to come and film you." And he filmed me in my living room. And then I toured with the Charlatans on screen. There was this
Right.
gigantic,
Yeah.
roboticized Ian Rankin, like an android behind them,
Yeah.
reciting this wee bit of verbiage that I'd written for them. I've seen footage of it, I've seen video of it, but I never got to see them do it live.
I was going to ask you, would that be awkward going watching yourself
I
in a big
don't. I
screen?
mean, it would be weird. That would be
Yeah.
weird. I mean, I've done a lot with the Charlatans. I mean, Tim asked me. They played. Was it the Usher Hall they played? And he said, "Do you want a DJ before we go on?" I went, "Aye,
Yeah.
okay."
Yeah.
I mean, what? I mean,
Yeah.
how ridiculous. He had to come on with me and show me how to work the controls. I mean, the last time I DJ'd, it was with 2 record decks,
Yeah.
back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Or cassettes. I used to make up, mixed cassettes,
Of
and I would take
course.
them to
Yeah.
parties and things.
Yeah.
But actually doing it with CDs and stuff, I went, "Oh, you better come and help me." But luckily, I was the first. There was another support act, and I was the first on, and so the room was pretty empty
Okay.
when I was doing my 15-20 minutes of old Isaac Hayes records.
Yeah. That's okay. I'd have been down well there, I would have thought.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
Isaac always goes down well.
Of course.
I did an
Yeah.
album a couple of years ago for Rough Trade, this called Behind the Counter, and it's a
Right.
thing they sometimes do, a double album, and they just say to you, "Look, if you run a record shop, what would we hear when we walked in? What
Yeah.
would be playing?" And I went for it. What to whittle it down from about 60 songs,
Yeah.
to a double album.
A
But
box set.
Isaac Hayes'
Yeah.
theme from Shaft, the first record I ever bought, is in
Yeah.
there, and I've still got that record.
Did you not say somewhere that kind of loosely you thought that the kind of whole Rebus thing would be like a John Shaft version in
Yeah,
Edinburgh? Is that
well,
right?
no.
Or
What I did
no?
was I nicked John Shaft's first name for John Rebus.
Ah, right. Okay.
I never thought you could do an American style cop thing in Edinburgh. But I did read the books because I was too young to get into the films. I loved the music, so I bought the record,
Yeah.
and I loved I loved the idea of the films. But they were X certificate, so I couldn't
Yeah.
get in. I was 12,
Yeah.
11, 12, so I bought the books by a guy called Ernest Tideman, and I've still got them somewhere. Yeah, and I think those would have been the very first crime novels I ever read, actually.
Okay. It's interesting. It must have set a spark on you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess.
absolutely. Yeah. What about did you get any gigs that you missed the last bus or train home?
No,
No.
I would miss the encore to
Ah,
get the
right.
last bus or
Okay.
train.
That
Um,
that's very
and
committed.
then I got to an age where I thought, right, I'm just going to chill, and I'm going to get a hotel room because I can afford it.
Mm.
So, for example, Friends Again,
Hmm.
do I go and get the Vomit Comet? Because there was an after party being invited to. Okay, so do
That's
you miss
right.
the after party
Yeah.
and go and get the Vomit Comet back to Edinburgh?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to book a hotel room, and I
Yeah,
can
quite
just
right.
chill out and take it nice and easy.
No.
But I had mates who would regularly have to walk home from Edinburgh to Fife, or who would sleep in Princess Street Gardens because they'd missed
Mm.
the last train home. But no, I was never one for roughing it.
No, we've had a few belters, as you can imagine, with that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, actually, not that long ago, I saw Neil Young at the Hydro, and we missed all the transport because he broke the curfew.
Uh-huh.
You have to play buyers at 11 p.m. normally,
Yeah.
and he went on at about 20 past 11. It was a Sunday night, and
Noodling away.
everything was gone, so we had to Uber home to Greenock. So it was
How long ago was that? I saw Neil Young in Glasgow a few years ago with Crazy Horse.
it was the Promise of the Real, I think, was the his sort of
Might have been
support
that might have
band.
been before that.
Yeah,
It was a
that
big,
was.
big empty shed of a place and a noisy gig.
No, it was a Hydro. It was actually it was
Yeah.
a good gig to be fair. Sounded really
But
good.
I think we had a car or a minibus or something to get us back to Edinburgh.
You're not going to leave Neil Young. It's yeah.
Not when he's noodling away in his prime, no.
Well, I had tickets to see him this summer and he cancelled. So I'm,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, very very disappointed with that. Kind of a wee curveball question. Loudest gig? Do you remember going to any gig and thinking, bloody hell, this is
Well, I took my son to see the Australian Pink Floyd show,
all right?
and
Okay,
that was at the Playhouse, and they were much louder than I thought they were going to be.
yeah.
His ears were ringing for several days afterwards. I've been to see Mogwai. I saw Mogwai at the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh, and I started off at down the front because I'm a big fan, down the front, and by the end of the gig, I was upstairs at the very back, with my fingers in my ears, and my trousers were flapping. My trousers were flapping because the bass was so heavy. There were bits of plaster falling off the ceiling.
Ah,
They were ridiculolously loud in a wee venue like that. So I've seen them do some bloody loud gigs,
yeah.
and they're always great, of course. One that was surprisingly loud was Godspeed You Black Emperor. I've seen them a couple of times.
I don't know
I
them.
saw them in Glasgow. I mean, they were okay in Glasgow. They weren't that loud, but I saw them in Edinburgh, and they were fearsome,
Yeah.
fearsome loud.
What kind of music's that?
Godspeed You Black Emperor. It's post rock. It's got a
Okay.
kind of Mugwai vibe.
Right.
It's instrumental. There's a lot of cellos and things, a lot of violins and cellos. So you think that's not going to be that loud.
Yeah.
But there's electric guitars as well. And they just kind of semi improvise, quite
Yep.
long pieces. Worth catching.
Yeah. Okay. That's another one on the list. Love that. It's one of the things. The reason we do this is to get recommendations because there's millions of gigs out there. So
Yeah.
it's nice to get some name checks that people can have a wee look at. What about, have you still got an artist or a band that you're really hoping to see that you've not seen yet? Bucket gig.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen Paul McCartney, and I mean, I know he's probably past his prime, but if I ever got the chance to see Paul McCartney, I'd have to grab it.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you see Pink Floyd? Just doubling back to the
you know
Australian
what? I was
Pink
thinking
Floyd.
of saying Pink Floyd as well, but they're never really going to properly reform, are they?
No, they would have been mine. I never seen them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, no, I never did see them
no.
back in the day.
I've seen
Just have to
McCartney. I was
keep
lucky enough to see him.
buying live performances of theirs when they come out on vinyl,
Yeah, me too.
and bootlegs. Uh, I met Dave Gilmore once at the Hay Literary Festival. Hayley Festival is a good place to meet musicians. One time I was backstage in the green room and I bumped into Robert Plant.
Right.
I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, I live nearby. I just thought I'd come down and check it out."
Yeah.
Ah, fair enough.
There you go.
My favourite one of bumping it into name dropping time. My
Go on
favourite
then.
one like that though. My wife wanted to go to some kind of choral music thing before Christmas one year in Edinburgh. George Street, a wee church in George Street, they were doing some Russian carols and choral music. Well, let's go along to that. We got there quite late, and the only seats were right in the front row, so we sat in the front row, and the choral thing went on, just amateur choirs, great. And at the end, somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and he went, "Hello, I'm Brian Eno." And indeed, it was Brian Eno. And I went, "Yes, you are." I said, "What are you doing here?" And he pointed to the stage
Uh,
and said, "That's my daughter."
wow.
And his daughter
Ah,
lives or lived near Edinburgh, and she was
yeah,
in one of the choirs.
yeah. Would you have known it was him, do you think?
Uh, Hang on, put my headphones back in. Would I have known it was him? Yeah, I would have known it was him if
Yeah.
I'd stared at him for long enough.
Wow, that's
Because I've
cracking.
got quite a lot of his albums,
Yeah.
and
Have you seen him live?
I've seen photos of him recently.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I
yeah,
would have known it was him.
yeah.
But it was very nice. He sent me a signed album
I
sometime
like that.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he'll gig soon. You can catch up with
Does
him.
he gig? I hate my dudes. I
Not
know my
many.
dudes.
No,
That
not
would be
many.
great actually, because I
Yeah.
don't. He never gigs
No,
really.
it doesn't. No.
That would be amazing. And if he just happened to get together with the original lineup of Roxy Music,
Roxy.
that would be even better.
Now you're
But I don't
asking,
think any of
right?
them need the money quite enough yet.
Now you're asking. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about band or artists that you've saw the most?
I saw Jackie Leaving a lot. I've seen Mogwai a lot. Back in the day, I saw the Scars and Joseph Kay a lot. The Skids, because right from the get-go, I was a Skids fan. We've not really talked about them yet,
No, we haven't.
but Stuart was at my high school. He was 2 years above me at Beath High School in Cowdenbeath. Um, and Stuart Adamson, the guitarist.
Yep.
And when I remember the first record coming out, and we went down to Cowdenbeath High Street to buy it from some electrical retailers, and it just seemed to be about us. It seemed to be about the kind of guys I grew up with, and we'd go and every gig they played in Fife and in Edinburgh, we'd go and see them. They used to regularly play a thing in Kirkcaldy called the Pogo a Go-Go Club,
Okay.
which was in the Station Hotel, and it was on a Sunday night, I think, and I poured bleach over a boiler suit. I used to work in a chicken factory, and I nicked one of the boiler suits from the chicken factory and poured bleach over it. And then I used to wear that. Now, what I hadn't done was give it a wash, so I'd be reeking of hot bleach as the evening wore on, and never did get a lumber.
No,
Never did get a lumber.
surely not.
I know. What can I tell you? I did a lot of dancing by myself at these
I love
skids
that.
shows.
Ah,
Yeah.
I used to go through to Jackie O's in Kirkcaldy
Oh yeah, Jackie O's was
back in the
famous.
day.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
did you know Stuart?
Never did. I mean,
No.
so shy because I got into a band when I was in my last year at high school called the Dancing Pigs,
Mm-hmm.
and our keyboard player Dov said he was going to get in touch with Stuart and ask him to produce our first single. Uh, Whether he tried or not, I have no idea. But it never happened. We did go into the studio a couple of times and we cut about 5 tracks and we sent a tape off to John Peel, as everybody does,
Yep.
which must be languishing somewhere in his collection somewhere,
Yeah.
unless he chucked it away. But no, never did meet him.
Okay,
I mean,
that's a shame.
I've met Jobson
Yeah.
many times and interviewed him on stage a few times, and he's always really good value for money.
Yeah.
And the band, I've got to say, are as good as ever were.
That
And
guitarist he has
he's
is
so pumped up. He's such a
outstanding.
great front man, and
Yeah.
he takes care of himself. And the songs are still superb.
Yeah.
So they're a band that have lasted.
I agree with all of that. I've done a live music and me podcast with Kirsten Adamson,
Hmm.
she's lovely and very talented, but obviously she'll refer a little bit to some of her dad's backstory, which is always really nice. And I
Yeah,
also
there's
had
yet
a,
another biography of him coming out. There's an authorised biography
I saw
coming out
that,
quite
yeah.
soon.
I need to
Yeah.
check that out. I actually had a sort of 20-minute podcast earlier this week with Steve Lillywhite,
Hmm.
because we've been doing these greatest Scottish albums things,
Hmm.
and Big Country have been kind of rolling through, so we
They
managed to
have.
to
They have.
track
Who
Steve
knew?
Lillywhite.
Who knew there were so many big country fans
I
out there?
mean, who knew indeed?
Yeah.
Full of surprises. So he lives in Bali now, of all places. So, but he very kindly gave us half an hour time and chatted about the album stuff, which was
Great.
it was very, very complimentary. Some really nice memories. which is great. Okay, what else have we got then? What about we ask all the guys who have kind of artists about an event that they did that they've kind of really loved, like a kind of favorite gig or a favorite performance. Would you have one?
What that I was involved in.
Yeah, you might have been a
I,
talking
I
thing
mean, I
or
loved all this. All I did it because I brought an album out with Jackie Leave and his
yeah.
record company, Cooking Vinyl, sent us on tour, and I used to love touring with Jackie
Okay.
because he tells the best stories. I mean, half of them made up, of course, but he has that folk musician's talent
Yeah.
for telling really funny stories while he's tuning up his guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but he phoned me up one day. He said, "Oh, Ian, we're going on this tour," and he said, "What do you want on your rider?" I said, "What's a rider?" He said, "Well, it's all what you get backstage." I said, "I'm a writer. We're lucky if we get a glass of water." You know what I mean? I said, "You're the musician. You do the rider." He went, "Okay." So I get to the Royal Festival Hall in London,
Yeah.
which is our opening gig, and we're sharing this huge dressing room, and he's over one side tuning his guitar, and he's surrounded by stuff, crisp white towels, a wee minibar, fridge, freezer thing.
Yeah.
Sandwiches, fruit, crisps, nuts, you name it, brrr,
Yeah.
chocolate, all of that, drinks galore, all kinds of booze. My side of the room, hee haw. And then this big, so I didn't, did I say anything? What did I won't say anything. And then this big backstage guy kicks the door open. He goes, "Which one of you, boops, ordered a haggis?" And he's basically holding an uncooked haggis. And that was all that was on my rider was one uncooked haggis for Mr. Rankin at every bloody location.
And what did you do with them all?
I had to chuck him out. I mean, I wasn't travelling with a fridge.
Oh, I like that.
I didn't have the means of cooking them.
Very good. Love that. Things you learn.
I know, I know. So I've
Okay.
always liked that. I mean, as someone who's a frustrated musician who wishes he'd been a rock star, as
Yeah.
many writers do, when I've ever had the chance to work with musicians, it's all, I've interviewed musicians at the Edinburgh Book Festival. Tim Burgess, when he brought one of his books, I interviewed him, and that was great fun. Um, Peter, I think I've interviewed Peter Hook. I've certainly seen him a couple of times do talks. Uh, I love it. I just love hanging out with musicians. And then,
Yeah.
Van Morrison's people got in touch and said, "Oh, apparently you're a big fan of Van Morrison. You mention him in your books. Do you want to write the foreword to his collected lyrics?" Yes, I'll do that.
Hmm.
Okay, also, Van wants to go on tour and do a spoken word thing and he wants you to interview him on stage. Fine. So I got to tour with Van Morrison,
And interview him.
interview him on stage for
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes. And
Y-
we
y-
did the first one we did was in London at the Lyceum Theatre in London, and there were people in tears because they'd never heard Van Morrison speak at length before.
Yeah, I was going to say
Because
that. And
he's, he's reticent on stage. He's very reticent on
yeah,
stage.
and he has a reputation of being a little bit difficult, right?
Well, there was one or two
Yeah.
events we did where he was clammed up. He just wasn't in the mood for chat, and that's
Yeah.
very difficult when you're the person who's trying to steer the conversation
What
along.
What do you do?
What do? You just kind of give up. Because I mean, after that he does a full band gig, so you can just get to say, I know him with a gig.
Yeah.
But getting to
True.
hang out with him backstage, getting to travel with him, getting to have dinner with him and chat to him was just a joy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And he was very, very pleasant off stage and just great company. And of course, he pals around with all the right people. So I got to meet Jimmy Page, who came to one of his gigs, and I mean, who else? Just loads of folk
Yeah,
who'd be coming to the gigs. It was brilliant.
that's
I would
amazing.
never, although it was hard work on stage sometimes, I wouldn't have traded it for anything.
No, it's worth it, isn't it? Absolutely worth it. Okay, back to your gig world then. So, couple of toughies to finish. Your favourite live music venue?
Ooh, I mean, everybody's going to say the Barrowland, aren't they? And I mean, the Barrowland is a fantastic venue, but I'm 60, nearly 66 years old. I need a
Hmm.
seat. And
Okay.
the one thing the Barrowland lacks, unless you're in a wheelchair, is a seat. So,
There's
I
seats
mean,
at the side. You just can't see the gig.
I
That's
know
all.
they're outside the bloody room. I know. But so I don't know. I mean, I do like the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh.
Hmm.
It's got great acoustics. It's got a nice atmosphere. Terrible sight lines. I mean, I once went to see who was it, Erlin Cooper there,
Hmm.
and I basically couldn't see him. There was a pillar between me and him. I could see the rest of the band, but I could not see Erlin Cooper because of the pillar.
Yeah.
But the acoustics were brilliant. I've seen so many great bands there, though. I mean, I saw the Residents there
Ah,
back in
okay.
the early 80s.
Yeah.
I saw Mogwai there, blowing the roof off. I've seen great folk musicians there. Bert Jansch, I've seen there. Um, I like it, and it is a seated venue, and it's got a good bar.
Yeah. Okay. That works then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We'll take that. Okay, what about cards on the table? Your favourite ever gig?
The Cure. Um,
London?
it was such a special occasion. The
Yeah,
Cure at the Truxie playing their new album, which came out that day, in its entirety. It was like a fan club kind of gig.
yeah.
People had come from all over the world because this was the one time they were going to do this. It was a day of release. They played the whole album straight through, and then they had a short break, a very short break, came on and did about 2 hours of greatest hits.
Wow.
And it just, I mean, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then there was an after party which I was invited to, and so I stayed for a wee while afterwards. But I thought, oh God, it's nearly midnight. I've got a half hour's walk back to my hotel. I've got to get myself back up to Edinburgh tomorrow. I'm just going to leave. So I said cheerio to Stuart from Mogwai and all the rest of the folk that were there. If I'd waited 5 more minutes, Robert Smith came out
Oh,
and had a wee chat to everybody.
oh.
Gutted,
But
absolutely gutted.
the gig
One of
was,
these days I will meet him. One of these days. I mean, I
yeah,
know that the Cure are coming to Edinburgh in August,
they
and
are.
Mogwai are supporting,
Okay.
and I'm going to chance my arm and see if there's any possibility of meeting them there, and just say thanks very much for all the music, and for gifting me the title of one of my books, The Hanging Garden.
The Hanging Garden. Yeah, absolutely. Well, they might watch this podcast, Ian, and they
Oh,
might just pick the phone up.
oh.
You never know, do you? And to finish, then, one live album that everyone should own a copy of.
Hawkwind, Space Ritual.
Space Ritual.
I never saw Hawkwind in their pomp. I did see them later on a few times, but I never
Yeah,
saw them in their 70s majesty with Stacia dancing and everything, and all the kind of early psychedelic light bubble machines and stuff. But listening to Space Ritual is about as close as you will get to that experience of very hippie, trippy,
hmm
ahead of its time psychedelic music that is also extraordinarily grungy and bluesy and heavy.
mm,
And with one of the great unsung drummers, this kind of motoric drumming that you get in the best Hawkwind albums. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many copies of it I own.
yeah,
I own a dozen copies of it. The CD with the extended tracks,
yeah,
the original LP, the LP with the extended tracks, the this, the that, the other, the cassette, bing, 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 bing. Every time it comes out again, or every time I see a bootleg of that tour they did, I'm buying it.
yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
mean, it is iconic, to be fair.
and not
Yeah.
enough people really know about it. I
No, they
mean,
talk
it
about
gets it
the
gets
Lemmy connection, isn't it? That's where it kind of
Yeah,
goes.
yeah, but a lot of
Yeah.
folk just they go, great live albums. They go for Thin Lizzy, or they go for Bruce Springsteen, or whatever. The Who live at Leeds. I mean, a lot of folk would go for.
They
It's
did,
not even
yeah.
the best Who album, um,
What's that then?
but best Who album is Quadrophenia.
Okay,
Oh, it's got to be. It's just the cleverest, most
that's good.
extraordinary, intricate piece of music writing that you can. I mean, it's orchestral. It's in suites. There's themes. There's this and that going on. There's a lot going on in that album.
Indeed.
And then who's
Okay,
next after that? Obviously,
okay,
I saw them
obviously.
play the Castle a couple of years ago. They didn't seem to get on too well with Zach Starkey, their drummer. There was
No,
quite a
apparently
lot of
not.
to and fro
Yeah,
between Townsend and him.
yeah. And that all ended in tears, didn't it? Pretty much.
It kind of did.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Good stuff. We've certainly not had Hot One recommended yet, so thanks for that.
We
That's on the list. Well done, mate. And that's us. How was that? Was that okay?
painless.
Painless. Well, painless is
Painless,
good, I
painless,
think.
painless.
I love
It was
that.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was good.
And what have you
And
got coming up?
I've got to do some work, and then after I've done some work, I can start going through the list for Record Store Day and
Okay.
deciding what I really, really, really need.
And can I just ask you just a PS to all that because we're still recording?
Yeah,
Can I ask you about Alex Harvey? Because
yeah,
you're sitting with your t-shirt on. I think you've got a mug to hand.
yeah. I've got half a dozen different album mugs of
I
Alex
don't
Harvey.
think you called him out at all there in gig
I think
chat.
I did. I said it was my second gig that I saw.
Ah, you did. Sorry, you
Um,
did.
and it was a
Sorry.
great gig. I'd have been about 16 at the time, about 1976. And I thought it was at the Usher Hall, but my mate who was there said no, it was at the Odeon in Edinburgh. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He was superb. He was everything you wanted. And I don't know how many days of my life I spent looking for a stripy Alex Harvey t-shirt. The kind of rugby shirt he
Yeah,
wore.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
the nearest I found in Kirkcaldy the stripes were too thin. I bought it anyway, but it was ridiculous. The stripes were too. I looked like I should have a swag bag over my back, you know, and a wee uh, blindfold thing on,
Yeah.
a mask on. But he was great. I only ever saw him that one time live. But I mean, I remember Alex Harvey. I was watching the Ogre Whistle Test, and there he was, and I just went, "What the heck is this doing next?"
Yeah.
And you went, "What is this?" And I was up at my sister. She lives somewhere near Perth. I was about, what would I be, 12, 13? I was up visiting my sister, and I went to her mate's house, and her mate had a cassette of Next. And so I borrowed the cassette, and then I went back down to Bruce's record shop in Kirkcaldy and bought the LP of Next. And that was me. That was on my Alex Harvey journey. I remember getting my mum upstairs to my bedroom to listen to a record. I bought an Alex Harvey record, Tomorrow Belongs to Me, and I said, "This is very different, Mum. You'll love this. Listen to this song, Tomorrow Belongs to Me. It's very, very, it's like a ballad." And she went, "Aye, that is lovely, son." Neither of us knew it was a Nazi song from the film Cabaret. I'd never seen Cabaret or heard of Cabaret. I remember when I went to see Cabaret the first time, I went, that's Alex Harvey's song.
I had my grand's best friend's son, Robert Dick. He gave me 2 albums when I was about 12 or 13, and one was the live album,
Uh-huh.
Alex Harvey, and the other one was Low by David Bowie.
Oh, wow.
And I knew neither of them at all. I was only, as I say, 12 or 13, and they kind of gave me my 2 touchstones going forward from there. You know?
Side 2 of Low would have been a difficult listen
Oh, I hated
when
it.
you're that young.
Oh, I hated it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alex Harvey was a lot easier to get into,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, side 1 of Low is just full of it. It's hit after hit
Yeah.
after hit.
I
All
know.
these catchy tunes, and then you turn it over and you go, "What is this?"
Love it now, but
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was
not
in
then.
Berlin with my son last year, and we did make the wee pilgrimage to the Hansa studio
Of course. Yeah,
to see where
course.
all the magic happened.
And back to work then. So you've got a new book coming out later
I've got
this
a book
year?
coming out in October. That's done and dusted. I've done the
It,
proofs and everything. That's
the
all
Heights, yeah.
finished. I'm
And
writing
that's
an
it's in London.
introduction.
It's not Edinburgh, is it?
It's
London.
London. It's a high rise full of posh, rich, dodgy people, and the security guard is found dead, and suddenly the police arrive and are confronted by a wall of secrets because these people all have things they don't want the police to know about.
Absolutely.
So it's just my way of giving a go at a good, giving posh London a good kicking,
Good.
really.
Like that. And will you do
Oligarchs
some PR and stuff off the back of that, I guess?
I'll do, come October, I'll be doing a wee tour, I would imagine, and
Yeah.
I'll be doing interviews and things. But
Edinburgh
next
Book
year, I've
Festival,
promised my
maybe?
publisher another book for next year, so
Oh, have you?
I'm in the planning stage. Well, not the planning stage, is the mulling over
Yeah.
what it might be,
Will that
and
be
doing a bit of
will
kind
that
of
be
background.
Rebus or not Rebus, do you
Yeah,
think?
probably.
Probably. Okay. Cool.
Who knows?
Who knows, mate? Well, you bring a lot of pleasure to a lot of people. So that was Live Music in Me with Ian Rankin. Ian, thank you very much for your time, mate.
Cheers.
Pleasure.
Over our garden wall, I hear the sirens call.